Welcome back to Did You Play That? Our retro gaming podcast focused on one of our favorite franchises and our other favorite classic games. My name is Eric, and the Dodongo to my old man co-host is Josh. Today's episode, we are discussing the original for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Legend of Zelda. Before we get into it, if you've been enjoying the podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, follow us on Instagram. What is your dog doing over there?
She likes to bundle up a little wall for herself.
Oh, there you go.
Lay down on. I don't really know.
I'm not cutting this. We're leaving this in the script. If you've been enjoying all of the things we've been doing so far, again, please subscribe, comment, follow us on Instagram at Did You Play That? Follow us or watch some of our playthroughs on YouTube. This one will be on there. It is a grand adventure. I cannot wait to talk about this. Before we do, I'm throwing Josh a little bit of a curveball because talking about such an original, iconic game like The Legend of Zelda. Josh, do you recall one of the first times that I could recall, at least, times we played video games together?
Ooh, that is a good question. I believe the first time, I'm not positive, was it at Scott Clark's house?
Oh, it might have been.
Playing some Mario Kart.
Oh, that totally could have happened.
During like a 2006 track season.
I was no longer around, but maybe you played.
I think of 2005, 4. I don't know. Anyway.
Might have been. Definitely could have been. I was thinking of a different time.
I was thinking of 05.
But around that same timeline, we were at Mayberry's.
Yeah, that would have been my second guess.
And I know that the two games that I played most there were one of the Mario Parties for GameCube.
Yep.
It had the microphone, which was weird to me, but it had a microphone.
Okay.
And the other game, which is actually probably one of my favorite shooters, Time Splitters 2.
Okay.
Two grand games, great adventures. Time Splitters 2 is a little underappreciated in my mind, but it's a fun game if you get a chance to play it.
Yeah, hopefully we can
one day
make another one.
But I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, like we got into this podcast together, kind of on a whim, kind of not knowing what we were getting into. I don't even know how many episodes in we are.
It's gonna be close to 10 or 11.
We're getting close to that point, but
yeah, we have not. I mean, what have we actually played together? Like 3 or 4 times ever?
Yeah.
Before this podcast?
Yeah, we didn't do much before this, and we you know,
very separate gaming.
I have to imagine, and again, I was thinking of other podcasts that I've listened to, and like other, you know, not even like video game podcasts, but just podcasts in general. And I think that is funny because some of them are like people who barely know each other having a podcast and conversation on a topic that they are both passionate about.
Yes.
And some of them are like their best friend that they grew up with, that they're doing this with now.
Yes.
And you and I like knew each other, like had similar interactions because we went to the same school, we went and did the same sports.
Yeah. And
then went completely separate directions, magically came back together in work. Actually,
that's
because
true.
we were working together for quite some time together.
Yeah.
And then now we're connected through video games, and still some mutual friends there also bringing us together from time to time, mostly to play video games. Yes, that's very true as well. But it was one of those things. It's like, man, the story of The Legend of Zelda and our story of the podcast and our story of just even how we've interacted with each other in our lives. It's an adventure. It's one of the things that's great about these games and games in general. But I was thinking, I'm like, man, we gotta do a little different at the beginning. And your dog helped us with one part, and now we're on to part 2 of us in this podcast.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like we've had our big gaps because of our personal families and everything. But this has been a great adventure so far in podcasts and just playing video games and discussing them and games that were popular then or were not popular then and are just like, are they worth kind of bringing back up and looking back at? Because they brought us to some amazing adventures in things like the Breath of the Wild, if we talk about Legend of Zelda specifically.
but also other great adventures of like Horizon. What's the Horizon game? Jeez, I just blanked on it.
Just called Horizon?
Is it?
Isn't the first one?
Yeah, I
there
think
are multiple of them.
Yes.
Right? The newest one is going to be made in VR, right?
Oh God, I can't do that. I'm gonna throw up.
I want it really bad.
Yeah,
I probably won't get it because it's super expensive.
Oh, agreed. But
it's also brought us to some very low lows.
Yeah.
If But yes,
I didn't realize.
I felt like. I guess I didn't necessarily realize this, but I was in like a bit of a gaming rut in my life at this point until we started the podcast, where I pretty much just played a couple games here or there, which we talked about kind of in the original podcast. You know, what are you playing? And I've played NHL for like years now, because that's just sort of something I have time for, like 1 or 2 games, like 15, 20-minute sections. And now this podcast has sort of breathed new life into my gaming experiences, and it's been cool to play some different games, replay some old games, but also some new games that I've never played before. And especially with this one, I would like to talk more about just my experience with Zelda.
Yeah.
Because Ocarina of Time is my personal favorite game of all time. And for the fact that it is my personal favorite game of all time, playing this original Zelda made me kind of realize I actually have not played as many of the others as I probably should have.
Oh, okay. You're one of those.
Ocarina of Time as much as I do.
Yeah.
Like, I've played Ocarina of Time multiple times. Played Majora's Mask once through. I definitely need to go back and play it again.
So let's go through go, because that's my next kind of comment or like headline here of what Zelda games have you played? Yes. And it doesn't have to be in any specific order. I'm going to try and mentally go through my order just because I won't otherwise be able to do it.
Right. So definitely I won't say the first one I played, but the first one that I played all the way through was Ocarina of Time. Right. I had played... I'm not the best at remembering the differences between A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, and which one's first.
Link to the Past. I don't know which one came out first. Link to the Past was on the Super Nintendo. Link's Awakening was on the Game Boy. Originally.
Okay, so I played A Link to the Past. I've played bits and pieces of it. I never got super far.
Okay.
But that one was definitely my most played up to Ocarina of Time.
All right.
And then played Ocarina of Time a couple times through before Majora's Mask came out. Played that one kind of once through. A little bit of Twilight Princess. And as we sort of referenced in the last podcast,
your disgusting
disappointment of, they made it seem like they were going to make this crazy Link, very super high graphics and sort of dark Zelda game, and then they turned it into Wind Waker, which just sort of... I'm not saying it's
the
a
hype
bad
train.
Game. Still need to, but it just wasn't what I was hoping for. So, I am replaying Link's Awakening.
Okay.
On the Switch.
Yep.
Those are the ones that I remember, honestly.
Breath of the Wild?
Oh yes, that one too. And I have not gotten very far in it. It's much different.
Yes.
Very different. Okay. Which I don't know. I just need to get more into it, and I'm hoping that doing this, playing this original Legend of Zelda, definitely made me want to play more of them.
Yep.
Which we'll get into shortly.
Yeah.
But that's re-energized me to really want to play all of them and see what it's all about. Yeah. More so than just my experience thus far.
So on my end, I had played and still do own the original cartridge for The Legend of Zelda. It's this gold cartridge. It's one of the coolest things as a kid you had the gold, you had that treasure in your hand. I never got very far as a kid, so for me playing through this now and getting a better light and experience of it was a lot of fun. Legend of Zelda 2 was like the weird stepsister, and I like parts of it, but I struggled with that game and the fighting mechanic in that game, especially with certain bosses or certain enemies. Though that'll be one that I think at some point we tackle that, because it's the weird one. I feel like the weird one doesn't get enough attention, and I want to play it, and that I'll make the comment towards Majora's Mask as well. Link to the Past is one of my favorites. I've played through it numerous times. I've played the randomizer with a ROM hack, and it is still one of those things I can pick it up and walk through it almost mindlessly, but still love it to death. I've played through Ocarina of Time a couple times. I've started Majora's Mask as a kid, and I've tried it again at some point with the cartridge on the 64. Something about it with the time mechanic, I just can't. I feel like I'm constantly resetting my game, and I'm like, I just couldn't get the same enjoyment out of it as I did Ocarina of Time, at least. I know I need to play through it. I know I need to beat it. Hate on me all you want, but it just hasn't been the priority for me. I loved Wind Waker. I did not like it initially because I thought it was too cartoony and too kiddish, similar to you, but now that I've played it and have gotten the exploration, friggin' love it. Twilight Princess, I haven't played since it came out. Beat it then and haven't picked it back up. But it was fun. I do enjoy, or recall enjoying it. I played maybe 30 minutes of Skyward Sword on the Wii U, and it was clunky and weird, and controls. I did get it for the Switch. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I had played the original Link's Awakening on Game Boy, beat it then, got it again for the Switch, beat it again. And I've beaten Breath of the Wild twice now. I know there's some DS ones, and there's some Game Boy Advance versions that I have not, or even Game Boy Colors, like Oracle, Season of... Those ones are in there, and I can't think of their names, to be honest, because I just haven't gotten to them. Though they are, like, again, they're like on my list, and that's, again, where this podcast, I think, is doing it for you, and it's doing it for me, where, like, yes. It's opening me up into, like, nope, I can't go back and just play the same game. Yeah. I gotta go play something new and start, like, progressing.
Forcing us to get on some of these games, which is not, because we definitely had again, not the same experience, but definitely a similar, like, hey, I've played some of this one, some of that one, all of this one, but not, and reading more into the whole timeline. Yeah. Like there's some release order is not even close to what the actual chronological order is. And I kind of I was trying to figure out, like, what people suggest. People do suggest playing it in release order and then figuring the timeline out separately. Like, it doesn't do much. Like, Ocarina of Time is actually the first one chronologically, or somewhere close to the beginning. It's an earlier
one, and then depending on... In it, when you actually play it and you beat Ganondorf, you go back to young Link and continue on into life, and then you go into Majora's... I think you go directly into Majora's Mask and beyond. Yeah. But there's also the timeline where you don't beat Ganondorf, and that leads you to a different timeline and a different set of, like, possibilities.
Which I believe the different timeline is this here, isn't it? From what I've read?
Might be. I don't know.
Zelda,
to be perfectly honest, I don't even know where the original falls. I know more about, like, the Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time kind of time area. I know that I think Skyward Sword is supposed to be one of the earlier ones as well. But again, don't quote me on any of this. I have not gone deep enough into this lore with this game.
I have here from ZeldaDungeon.net.
Oh.
I also have
It's more official because it's .net, right?
I also have OpenZeldaFandom.com, but... because Zelda does need multiple fan sites and such.
I agree.
So, timeline placement. Obviously, the direct sequel is Zelda 2, like you mentioned earlier. In 1991, when A Link to the Past was released, it is a distant prequel to the first two Zelda titles. So already they're going backwards. Yep. Then it says the timeline gets a little blurry over the next 20 years with many new games. It was revealed that there were 3 outcomes branching from the Ocarina of Time. The one that results in Link failing to defeat Ganondorf, which is considered the downfall or decline branch. The Decline timeline followed A Link to the Past, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages, Link's Awakening, The Legend of Zelda, and The Adventure of Link, which is Zelda 2.
Yeah.
So, Ocarina of Time seems to be one of those first ones, and then this one seems to be kind of in the middle of one of those timelines resulting from an Ocarina of Time. So, very clear and succinct. We know where this falls in the timeline now.
Time-space continuum. Anyway. I mean, come on, anything could happen out there, right?
Not important, because let's just... shall we get into the game?
Let's just dive into this one, because there's so much to talk about with this one. Surprisingly, for such an old game, this game outdates both of us. This is 1986. This came out.
Yes.
Right.
So I have to say, just starting off again, because like I said, vast majority of my Zelda experience comes from Ocarina of Time. I loaded this game up, and right off the bat is the Legend of Zelda music.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, like, when did Ocarina of Time come out? Like 20 years, more than 20 years later?
I think Ocarina of Time's like 96.
20.
That's 10 years.
10 years.
Wow, good math. Good, you know.
86 it's Friday. Where we are right now, it is Friday. Just so everyone knows, it's Friday.
What day is it?
Friday.
Can we sing this song?
So we don't have to do math on Fridays.
Yeah, I think
it was
crazy
it was
about
to
10
just
years, right?
To just hear the music and be like, okay, like, what have I been missing out on in my Zelda experience
A lot.
Yes. And then I scroll over one screen and there's all these baddies that I recognize.
Yep.
So I did have to get that out of the way to start with.
Yeah. So the game starts off, you create your character, you go in and you name your person, and we'll talk about that. I hope to bring that back up at the end if we remember. If not, then Zelda.
Yes. But what do you name your person?
I named them my name.
Okay.
In this case, I did. I mean, I'm not going to... I've played Pokemon a few times, and I feel like that's the only game where I consistently call myself and the other character something random, weird, inappropriate, etc.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Assface seems to be the name I use for some reason.
It's a good one.
I don't know why that's the name, but that's the name.
Maybe 12-year-old self can explain it to you sometime, I'm sure.
Well, let's be honest. How many times you get to name every single character you catch or every single Pokemon you catch? It's like, well, what are you supposed to call them all? What did you name yourself something?
I always go with Link. That's its name.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Link.
All right. I think I did go with
else
Eric.
Plays, so I don't need to name it me and then give the names for other people.
Yeah.
Link. We are Link.
You start off, and I'm hoping. You said you've never played this before, right?
No, I have not ever played
What did you do immediately from that first intro screen?
Go into the cave.
Okay, you did. Because I think that's my biggest concern for anybody playing nowadays is you can go anywhere. You don't have jack shit.
Yeah, and I read about this. You can actually get all the way to Ganon without ever going into that cave.
Yeah, which is crazy. Crazy.
I almost want to try it.
I don't.
No. There's other things we need to try.
You can try it.
You do have to come back to this game because, as you said, Zelda.
Yep.
So I'll try and remember to come back as well.
So you need to go into the cave, and this is where the infamous line is with the old man of...
I don't remember this guy's line. I do have one written down for most of the rest of them, which I thought was hilarious. But what does this guy say?
I think it's "Don't go along." I can't. Wow, we totally just shit ourselves right there. I expect a lot of hate for this one thing because I can't even "Don't go alone." Take this. Oh my God. And I don't have it written down because I was like, oh, I'll remember it. I know it. And I've seen it and I have it like written down in random places.
Well, this is why we're failures as Zelda.
This is why we get paid to do this podcast, right? Because
yes,
that's just exactly where we're at with this. Don't go alone. Whatever it is, old man tells you to take a sword. And originally, and I think this would have been interesting, they gave you an option of the sword or the boomerang.
Okay.
So originally there was an option, and then it turned into you only could take the sword. And so after that, hopefully you did stop there. Otherwise, you're really good at this game, and you can beat it without getting hit. Or you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You can go anywhere.
Yes. That was wild.
I mean, you can go to, like, you can get into the castle where Ganon is from the beginning of the game.
Can you go that far?
You can go directly. You can go directly to the castle. You can't go through all the castle because you have to have the Triforce.
Okay.
But you can get into it, which in my mind is crazy for one of the first early Nintendo games. First real like action adventure, because there was like at this point there was those really crappy like computer games where you would type like go west, and then it would go west if you could go west. Pick up box,
now
open door, and like that was
take offense to you calling those games crappy.
God, I can't stand them. Probably because I suck at typing and I hate reading. But
not that I've ever played, but I enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, and that's like a type of. So anyway,
not hating on D&D, not any hate towards that, because there's a lot of personal like creativity with that. But
it's kind of similar to that. Anyway,
there is some similarity.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Here's my first rabbit hole that I went down.
Oh God. How many holes do you have?
Mentioned only a couple in this. I didn't have time to go down too many, but because as you said, this is one of the first games of its kind, created by Shigeru Miyamoto. Legendary god of Nintendo, who was simultaneously making Super Mario Brothers and Legend of Zelda. And the whole point was Super Mario Brothers was designed to be very linear, and he wanted to make an opposite game with Legend of Zelda. He also created the original Donkey Kong, Star Fox, Pikmin. Had some influence on Pokemon, Metroid Prime, so this man just lived maybe the greatest life of any human being to ever exist. So that was my first rabbit hole, and I don't want to go too much further down, but I did have to give Miyamoto a shout out.
Dude did some amazing things, and again, I think I like that at least you brought up the fact that he was working on both, because when you think of how big both of those games are back in 1986, 87 timeline versus how big both those games are now. Those are probably two of the biggest video game franchises.
Especially with Zelda creating basically an entire genre of open world. It was like the first open world game.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are so many ways we can go with this one. And I didn't want to dictate it. I really left my notes wide open of like just random comments as I played, and random comments in certain areas or castles, and random things that would happen to me or as I played. I don't even think that I can go castle by castle with this, to be honest.
No. Real quick, related other rabbit hole. Let me start there. Sorry. Last one, I promise. But,
yeah, right.
Do you know where the name Princess Zelda came from?
I do know. I remember it, but I know that he felt like the name Zelda was just smooth and easy and like nice to say to some extent, and he just like thought it sounded well or nice.
So he did like the sound of it, but it is actually inspired by someone. And again, this was Miyamoto, which is why I bring this up now before we get any further. The wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald.
There it is.
Who wrote The Great Gatsby and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, among other books. Her name was Zelda Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
And so that's where the Princess Zelda gets her name.
And I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's 2023 now.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody with the first name of Zelda, to be perfectly honest, but I know some people who have the middle name of Zelda. And it is a pretty cool name, in my opinion, actually. Hopefully you all know that Zelda is not the main character that you play as. If you haven't figured this out by this point, this probably is not the podcast for you.
It's a very common
confusing at first.
Rookie misconception, for sure. We've all been there, but again, in 2023, hopefully this is definitely not the podcast for you if we're not there yet.
So,
okay, so
we
yes,
lost two people.
I think I agree as far as not going dungeon by dungeon necessarily, especially
let's just talk, again, immediately.
The world, you could have, like you said, gone pretty much to any dungeon you wanted to.
Immediately, I feel like the first thing I want to talk about, you can just explore.
Yes.
Like, you don't start off with a lot.
Overworld, they call it.
Yes, you don't start off with a lot. I did end up killing some bad guys early and getting some bombs, which, it's a droppable item. It sucks that you can only hold 8, because I was trying to bomb everything and then I was running out of bombs.
Now, again, so you mentioned, I think, you originally played this game and didn't get very far, and I can see why. Because there's nothing. In Ocarina of Time, for example, you see a little crack in the wall and you're like, oh, I bomb that crack in the wall and it will open up.
You also have this annoying little fairy going, hey, listen!
Yes, your navigation
system. And she tells you what to do when you see random things like that, because you can target it. Here you don't have
come from
anything.
Feedback from this game here, where it's literally you can bomb anywhere. Maybe you'll find the right place to open up a cave to the merchants or the castles, dungeons, whatever. I liked a lot of the merchants. I thought they were hilarious. That you just walk into this cave and they're all buy something, will ya?
This is really expensive.
It got me.
Oh God, we'll talk about some of the other people in a little while. I think, right? But the exploration was fun. Like, you go from each area. There's sometimes the same group of bad guys or new bad guys that you haven't found. I like that they started mixing some of them together. And though there wasn't really a guide as to what you did back in the day, and again, somewhat with so if you actually, I know you didn't, but if you looked at the manual, it gave you like the original screen. And then it gave you like a small map. It didn't give you everything. Okay. But it gave you an idea of where the first castle was and where the second castle was. Not how to get to the second one, but how to get to the first one at least. Would have been helpful. So again, like, it gave you some things to work with to begin with. But this was one of those games, and you probably didn't do this. And I know I did this with this and the original Metroid growing up. You started drawing out maps and creating your own like grid system. And you talk to your friends, or you go home and play and like search and explore, bomb more areas, light more bushes on fire, because that was the funnest part in my mind, was just burning everything once I had that red candle.
Love lighting things on fire.
And making your map of where things were that you needed or wanted.
Yes, and back in the day when you had all the time in the world to play video games, I definitely would have liked to have spent more time doing that, but I just have to look up the
nowadays. Nowadays, people don't want to do that. There was really no guidance. One of the early items that you need for exploration was the candle, and the blue candle is so frustrating to have in exploration, because you can walk onto a screen, use it once, and then that's it.
And I had no idea. I was thinking Link to the Past, where you had like a magic meter, and I was like, I just can't find where my magic meter is. I walked into a merchant with the red potion and the blue potion. I'm like, oh, okay, health potion, magic potion.
I never once knew what the blue potion was. I never bought it, and I think back in the day, I don't even think if I knew how to use the potion. I was so bad at it.
Yes. Do you know what it is now?
I know that it's another full load of health. Because I used
it. The blue potion you can use once to refill your health. The red potion you can refill your health Twice.
Well, you use the red potion, it turns into the blue one, and then you use the blue one, and then it disappears from your...
I never even bothered buying the blue one.
Oh, yeah, I didn't either.
Again, so yeah, the point of the blue flame was you could use it once, then you just had to leave the screen and come back, and you could use it again. So I had no idea.
Not knowing, I'm not getting far enough into the game where you get the upgrade to that, the red candle, which lets you just, like, rapid fire burn everything.
Yes. Including yourself.
Including yourself a lot. That made it so much easier with exploration. So once I had that, even though I didn't really need it much, I was like, why did they make this such a late game item?
Yes.
And I think that plays a role in what they did in the future with items and weapons, but it was one of those things of when I got it, I was like, now I really want to go and explore.
Yeah,
and I couldn't go anywhere to explore because I'd already done a lot.
Yeah. So, when I got the blue flame, I used it once, and then I sat there and tried to use it again, and I couldn't. And then I thought it was magic, and I couldn't figure out how to refill my magic. So I actually just literally didn't use it again until I got the red flame. I just didn't use it again until I, like, figured out. I think I read it while I was like, all right, I'm far enough into the game. Like, let me see what I'm not doing. And it was like, oh, you just use it once, and then you got to leave it. So that was a helpful tip very late in the game.
Yeah. I think, and again, in the exploration, like the game and the map has its different areas. Like you have like the Death Mountain area where the rocks are falling down at you. You have the zombie ghost graveyard area. You have the water area where you're constantly by the coast of the water. You have your more wooded area where there's like trees and bushes and everything. You have the Lost Woods. There's even a section in the mountains that's similar where you have to go a certain direction or a certain pattern, which again, thinking way back when to what that meant, that's crazy to mine.
Yeah, it is wild that stuff comes back around again in later Zelda games. Like they have those areas.
Are in almost every Zelda game.
Areas.
Yeah. And so I just think that some of those things are clear and descript for such an early game that was as big as it was. And just your ability to move. I mean, like you could go anywhere, which really felt sometimes like you went nowhere. Yes, but like you could get and go pretty much anywhere you wanted.
You could explore without really progressing anything. Yes.
And that was one of the things that for me, even now, that still felt pretty good. Like what didn't feel like as adventurous as the Breath of the Wild, but you saw what they wanted. And as a kid growing up playing this, not that I appreciated it that much then, I appreciated it now for myself back then. So, yeah, I mean, I had so much fun doing that. I had a lot of fun in the underworld and the castles. Again, knowing that each area was a little bit different, commented about how hilarious some of the castles are, because one of the castles is just like a tree trunk.
Yes.
You just walk into a tree trunk and like, that's the castle. And you're like, okay. I think it was Castle 7 or Castle 8 where you burn a bush and it's just, there's a castle under here.
It's
like
a stairwell. You just walk down the stairs.
And you just go down there. And so I really thought it was funny that like some of the castles looked like castles. Some of them looked like, I don't even know. Like it was just like, what is this?
With the mountain, and then some of them were just stairwells. You just walk down the stairs and like, oh, here I am. I was also, some of them had secret, in air quotes, entrances. Did you find any of those?
The castles had secret entrances?
Yeah, so like...
I didn't know this.
So one of the castles, I don't remember which one, maybe 5 or 6 or something, was the castle where it had the statues that if you walk close enough to them, they animate.
Yep.
I don't know what they're called. I don't know the name.
That's somewhere in the manual. We can...
If you moved the top left one, a stairwell appeared underneath it.
Oh.
And you could walk down the stairs and enter through the same exact entrance as you would if you just walked in the entrance of the... So there's no point to it.
Weird.
I think. I don't know. Maybe I missed something. But yeah, there was no point in my estimation as to the secret entrance, but they were there right next to the original entrance for some of the dungeons.
I don't know why they would do that. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I mean, even thinking into not that far off, but Super Mario World, when you think of Bowser's castles, there's the secret entrance. And so, I mean, maybe they were already starting to explore that idea and just couldn't pull it off or like didn't make any difference. I don't know.
It also could relate to, again, I think what we'll come back to once you beat the game.
Yeah.
Potentially. I'm just not sure.
That was one of my other comments later as well.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I feel like dungeons or castles were well put together. Like they had enough of exploration / getting lost, especially in the later ones. I started. I really needed the maps come like 5, 6, 7, 8. Definitely Ganon's castle.
The map, as far as like you had to find it in the map, or
I needed that, and sometimes I needed more.
Okay.
Yeah. So like Ganon's castle, I had a walkthrough for it because I had no idea what the hell to do.
I looked up a walkthrough for Ganon's castle only after I actually accidentally found Ganon sooner than I wanted to, because I wanted to explore everything in this game. So I found Ganon by accident when I was only like halfway through, and I backed out.
Even with my like map / guide, I had gone and found things and got that far before I wanted to as well, and then was like, well, like kind of went back. And so, even one of the bosses,
like the silver arrow, and the red flame, I think, or
the red ring, yeah,
the red ring, yes.
I think it was the 7th or 8th castle. I had actually beaten the boss and was like, wait, I never even got the item.
Yes.
So it was like, I need to go back and explore, which I don't hate that you can do that, but it made it feel sometimes like whatever was in there wasn't a necessity.
Yes, and again, finding out that you can get all the way to Ganon without a sword.
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
Yep.
For sure.
For me, a lot of cons, but
was that? Do you remember what item that was? Was it the book?
For what?
The just the one that you happen to go back and find late near the end. When do you get the book? It's near the end, right?
I don't. I feel like it might have been. I'm trying to remember which items are in which thing.
But anyway, the book, I don't know what they call it. Is it a magic book of magic? Anyway, another real quick rabbit hole I went down. It's actually in the Japanese version, it's the Bible.
Yeah, there are some religious connections in these, and I know that Nintendo of America, when they had this come over, was like, no, we don't do this religious thing with video games, and really shut that down.
Especially when what it did as a Bible was give you the power with your magic wand to fire off whatever sonic boom and then create fire. So it was like you were using the Bible to do magic, and I just can't imagine that going over very well.
I cannot imagine that going over very well at all.
But I thought it was hilarious.
Bringing up that wand, though, that was, once I got it, one of my more favorite to use weapons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so each castle kind of has your little bit of exploration. Maps were definitely needed later. I think the early ones you could kind of just get through, really not without much. It took me a while to even figure out that when you paused and looked at your map in the castles before you actually picked up the map in that castle, that your map was kind of being put together.
I did like that piece of it for sure, and I think that
I just didn't like that it wouldn't show you like doors for some of the rooms. So if you went to, like, if you walked in the first room and you could go left, up, and right, if you went right and then you looked at that room that you had just been in, it just showed the passage to the right.
Yeah.
So I wanted like some type of marking so that I could have known that. But I mean, again, I don't know how complicated these things were, or even if that was that big of a deal back then.
Right.
Again, knowing I made my own like grids and maps probably wouldn't have given a crap back then. Knowing that I didn't want to do that now, and that my artistic ability would have made it look atrocious, I was like, I wish it would just do this.
Yes. Yeah, I like the progression of dungeons as well. They got a little. You needed a little bit.
They definitely got it more complicated and difficult
for the most part. Like one or two maybe took a step back from the preview, but Also, again, since we have done Star Tropics already, it was pretty
clear the connection that they were trying to follow that
copying of a lot of the aspects of the dungeons from Zelda into Star Tropics was pretty hilarious.
That's one of the things I love about Star Tropics.
Yeah, I mean,
like, you take a game that I already know I like and love, and take it a little bit differently.
That's fine. Yeah, I will play Zelda in any format.
Yeah.
So, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. Man, so as you're exploring, you get some items. I think it's amazing that this early in gaming history, you get upgrades for not only your swords, not only your defense, but for how many bombs you can carry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shocked that, and again, early in this game, I was pissed that I was like, dude, I can only hold 8 bombs. Like, what the? I'm using 6 on one screen. What the hell am I supposed to do?
And again, without knowing where, like, you might have had to use all 8 bombs in one screen just to get the opening to the merchant cave.
Yep.
Because there's no clue at all,
Nothing.
no hint as to where it is.
But I was so grateful when they got the upgrade for 12 and even another upgrade later for 16.
I don't think it's a 12.
I knew of I think it's the white sword. I don't know what it's called technically in this game, but like the first upgraded sword. And when I got later in the game and found out there was another one, I was like, holy smokes, like this is impressive.
Yeah.
Because again, just thinking about the detail and thought of having those things, the detail and thought of having a defensive upgrade,
a shield upgrade,
a shield upgrade, yeah. And not that the original shield doesn't do anything. It's just there. I don't think it blocks anything.
It blocks the what are the
Octorok things or whatever those. Yeah, the one.
That's about it.
The like original bad guy you see in like 5 screens.
Yeah. That's about it.
That is about
the upgraded shield, which I kind of read through a walkthrough after I was sort of done with the game, just to be out of interest more than anything else. You can just get the magic shield again because you can explore and go any direction. You could just get the upgraded shield pretty much before you do anything else.
Yeah,
which would have been helpful for sure because it blocks a lot more stuff.
Yep.
But no, I didn't do that. So
yeah, and I think technically speaking, one of the bad guys in the game can steal your magic shield.
I assume it is the
weird tube thing,
jelly thing.
Yeah.
Again,
I'm gonna pull up. I don't want to pull up their name. Taught you that?
You know, it sucks you in and then it spits you out, and it's taken one of your things. So yes, I did read that is the case. I came across plenty of the merchants that were selling. A couple of the merchants sell that upgraded shield.
They do.
It doesn't look different enough to me. I assumed if you lost your original shield, you would go and buy it back from this guy. So I came across it enough that I didn't even buy it because I didn't realize it. I didn't recognize it as a bigger shield or an upgrade.
So those jelly-like things are called like. Literally spelled like.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes, a tube-like monster that has a soft spot for magic shields. He eats them up. So,
nice.
Yeah, again, those types of things this early in gaming are just so impressive. This is one of the first games that like really brings multiple screens, multiple like an overworld, multiple parts to an underworld.
Overworld.
It is so crazy in my mind that this existed and happened as smoothly as it did. It wasn't like it was clunky and awkward. You move and go where you want to go. You turn and adapt quickly and attack quickly. Like you have numerous items that can attack full screen or partial screen or can go at a diagonal, and it's just
throwing the boomerang at a diagonal for the first time, I was like, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's so cool. Oh, God. I just have so much appreciation for where this game was at that time and what it's now grown into as well. And it's just that ability to go and do all these things. I don't even, there's points in this conversation where I've literally stopped being able to know where I want to go because there's so many places that we still could go.
Absolutely. I still have so many notes and just trying to figure out which one to bring up next.
Yeah,
I guess more of the overworld just immediately, again, because, and this makes sense because of the way they've set up the lore of the timeline system of this game, the bad guys are just like the same. Like, you got the Striders.
Nope.
They were difficult to track in this game because there's no height. There's just it's a 2D game.
Yeah.
But they're just like, they're chilling up in the mountains and then they'll just jump down and you can't really tell where they're going to land. So, a little bit annoying and frustrating, but that's part of the game.
But again, if you had arrows at that point, you could keep your distance. Or if you had boomerang, you could stun them and then keep boomerang them until you were close enough to hit them.
Magic Wand was a game changer.
Once you had something like that, you could hit them from afar regardless and kill them. And that's one of the things. Is you really got the ability to kind of pick and choose how you wanted to handle even basic enemies. And though I know there were definitely some bad guys that were, in my mind, obnoxious and frustrating and fucking impossible.
Flying, again, I can picture them all as awkward. It was cool. My mind was upgrading the graphics while I was playing the game because I was like, oh yeah, those blue Strider guys with the yellow legs that jump around, and they slide on the water, and the fucking...
Those things are called... So those the blue Strider things, they're spidery quote things, is called a Tektite.
Okay, yeah. What are the things... Again, I have a better description of them in Ocarina of Time, but they're like the giant, fat, round plants that pop up out of the ground and turn into helicopters. Those are pea-hats.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those things suck because they're, quote, flying. You can't hit them.
I
don't think with anything, because I didn't really try with arrows or with the magic wand. At that point, I just got to a point where I said, I'm just avoiding you.
Yes. Which was annoying on certain screens where there's like 6 of them.
Yeah. And you went through that one screen numerous times because it was like in a main location. Yeah.
And it was like right in the middle of the map. Yep. And there was a river, so you didn't really have much. You couldn't even use half of the screen. Yeah. So you were really cornered there, unfortunately.
Again, knowing that it makes these reconnects, you had moblins and goblins. You had Armos, which was the statue when you got close to.
And those are both, at least, I'm sure they show up in other games too, but what is I can't remember my Zelda game names.
I don't know which one you're thinking of, to be honest.
The most recent one.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, the Breath of the Wild characters, moblins and
what I, originally, when I feel like growing up, I saw it as more of a like half horse, half man in the game / I don't even know what this
Centaur.
Is. But the Lino is one that's also in the Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I think I can...
Those were the blue... Yeah. They were blue and orange ones that like shot swords at you from afar.
Yeah.
There was those basic blob guys, which would split into 2. Those were Zols and Gels. I don't know if those come back into play ever. I greatly appreciated your Star Tropics comment earlier because the snakes
they're
called rope. I don't know why they're called rope. That's a pretty dumb name. But I like that they do the same idea where they like see you and they dash at you.
Yeah, they dash. Yep.
The bats are called Keese. I didn't know that.
I do know that from the Ocarina of Time when it's nighttime. The Keese come out.
That's I should have known that, I guess, because I knew that. The skeletons are Staphos.
Which also come out with the darkness in Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time. And probably others, but...
So many others. And that's the thing is, like, you're making those connections. I'm thinking Link's Awakening and Link to the Past. And, like, thinking of even, like, that shorter upgrade, but, like, it's still there.
It's just crazy that they're able to make so many games in this same setting, same timeline situation.
You had the wall monster, which... I didn't have any issues with here. That's the hand that would come out of the wall.
Oh, yeah. No, those
and a lot of other ones that just fall from the ceiling and, like, pick you up. And I was so grateful that was not one of my complicated bad guys.
No, I only saw them a couple times, and they were pretty...
They weren't as prominent as... Like, I think in Link to the Past, they eventually show up in, like, half of the dungeons in the Dark World.
Okay.
The guy that throws the boomerang is called a Gorilla. Not one that I recognized, nor do I recognize the image of like what they drew in here. The wizards that shot...
Fuck the wizards.
God, I think we need to talk about these guys.
Yes.
There was the orange and blue Wizrobe.
Yeah.
And the orange ones weren't bad. They would kind of pop up, shoot at you, disappear.
Yeah.
And again, there was a Star Tropics version of that, which in that game, instead of attacking them with your yo-yo, you like deflected that item back at them.
Yes.
Which I wanted to do in this game because I've spent more time playing Star Tropics than I have the original Legend of Zelda.
And again, for most of the time we fought these, I don't think either one of us had the shield.
I had a shield, but I think my issue was more so with the second, the blue version.
The blue ones.
Because I don't know.
They took more hits.
They took a lot of hits.
A lot more hits.
And
they didn't disappear. They were on the screen the whole time.
They don't disappear, but they
can teleport.
And I feel like they were one of the few enemies, other than the Keese, or those small type enemies, that moved diagonally.
Yes.
Which really...
And through walls.
Through walls, through bricks, diagonally, really changed your ability to attack, defend, and anticipate.
And they were rapid fire if they were...
If they lined you up,
yes,
you were done. And I can't tell you how many times
devastating amount
one
of
would line me up. One would line me up.
Hearts.
Boom, 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 boom. Pew, 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 pew. Whatever that. I can't even do that sound effect. Lights me up. And then I'd finally get bounced around and out of that attack pattern to then get lined up by another one.
Yep. And in a lot of those rooms were also the just fuzz balls that hit you. And
those things are called, I think they're called bubbles. Bubble, that's their name.
Yeah. They didn't do any damage, but when they hit you, you couldn't attack for a while. So you just had to run around away from these blue guys trying not to get hit while not being able to hit them back.
Because nothing else hurt them. I don't think arrows hurt them. Nope. I don't think the wand didn't hurt them. I was constantly throwing things. I think
you could bomb them.
I don't think I bothered because I was terrified of them. Yeah. And I was I need to stay away from you.
I eventually in the rooms where there are 3 or 4 of them, I was like, all right, I'm just dropping bombs and we're gonna get out of here. Yep. But yeah,
I got to rooms like that where if I didn't need to do anything, I just left. Yeah. I would go I'd be like, all right, I'm going to the right. Screw this. Or with the bubble, I learned that the bubble and the orange guys were not as strong. The orange guy wasn't as strong.
Yeah, and
the bubbles don't hurt you. So I learned to get hit by those instead of
invincible for a brief moment.
And so that was my strategy, was to get hit by a different character in hope that I could survive long enough. Hope is a key word there.
Yeah, but fuck the blue Wizrobes for sure.
I don't get it. Why? I think my biggest thing was, why is it all of a sudden, and I don't know about you, I had a controller for the NES. And I think that's another question I have for you at some point is, what do you call that system? Because it's gone through this lapse of time now where for me growing up, it was the NES or the NES.
Yeah.
And at one point it was the original Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of going back, and now we're back at this is it NES or NES or whatever you want to call it. But at one point I had a controller that was not the original. It was black and it had turbo buttons. Did you ever have any controllers with that?
Not. I think the only time I remember turbo was Genesis controllers.
Okay.
And I never really figured out how to use the turbo.
So
feature.
Mine had switches where it was automatic, off, and then hold. And what that meant was if it was on automatic, no matter what, the B or the A button would just keep mashing that purposely.
If you just press it?
No, if it would just do it, period.
Okay.
Hold meant if you were holding that button, it would rapid fire that button.
Okay.
And I felt like they had that ability. They had a turbo button to them because I can't tell you, again, and I don't mind quick attacks, but I feel like I was hit by their attack. There was a screen or a block of nothing, and the next one was already right behind it.
Very rapid fire. And first time you run into them, I have no upgraded armor at this point.
Oh, you were fucked. You took 2 hits.
Yeah, you're taking 3 hearts worth of damage with each. So boom, 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 dead. That's it. It's over.
It was so... and even late in the game, I struggled with them immensely. Yeah. And again, if I could, I purposely tried to leave. I think that they were the most difficult bad guy.
Absolutely.
God, I hated those things. There was the Dark Knight, which was like the knight that walked around. There was an orange one and a blue one.
Those were
orange one you had to
annoying.
Hit. Yeah,
but...
you hit him in the side or you hit him in the back.
Yeah.
The orange one moved a little bit slower than the blue one, but wasn't that bad.
No, there's only one time, and I believe I made a note of it, so I'm gonna try and find it. There was only one time when the blue ones really, really like.
There was a couple areas where there was like 5 or 6 of them, and that was like what was difficult was I feel like both times there was that like diamond shape with the staircase in the middle, and you couldn't push the brick and go down the stairs until you had killed all of them.
There was one where I want to say there was like 8 of them, and it wasn't like that. There was a staircase, but it was one of the staircases on the right side of the room.
Yeah.
And so you could just skip them and go down the staircase, but like I walked into the room and saw 8 of them and was just noped the fuck out.
Yep.
So like I didn't even remember. I didn't even picture the room in my head to be like, oh, I don't have to kill any of them. And I forget what was down there, but it was a good item. I don't know if it was... I don't remember which item it was, but I ended up killing the boss, leaving the dungeon, completely forgetting that the room even existed,
yep.
And then later on reading through the walkthrough and being like, shit, I need to go back and get whatever that was.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have left that there. That was the only time that the blue guys really, like, fucked me up. And other than that...
They were manageable. And again,
yes.
like, you kind of had to track the ones you had already started beating up a little bit or hitting a few times. That way you could kind of chip at least 1 or 2 away and then kind of attempt the rest of them. We talked about the like. There was a mummy called Gibdo, which really wasn't that bad.
No.
The little flame worm thing was called Moldorm.
What's that one look like?
He was like a bunch of flame balls connected.
Oh, yeah.
But he was supposed to be like a worm. He wasn't anything difficult.
Especially when you had full health and you could just projectile your...
The Patra was only showed up late, which was, honestly, it looked like a bug with like flying eyes around it. And it was only in, I think, the last 2 castles, or even maybe just Ganon's castle. And originally I was just trying to attack the center thing, center eye or bug or whatever it is. And I didn't realize I had to attack its like outer shield and take care of all of those things first. But wasn't too difficult. I thought the one that turned into like one of them, most of them just did circles, and one of them was so far to the side that when it did that expanded circle, the attack showed up on the opposite side of the screen, and so I felt like I was being like surprise attacked, but
okay.
Most of them weren't too bad.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any troubles with them. I could figure out their radius and just sort of stand there and cut down the shield.
Poke them away and then deal with them.
I just thought they were bees.
Yeah, I didn't know what they were, to be honest, either. And other than that, I mean, you see some of the bosses you fight later as like kind of mini bosses or, guys that show up, but...
They're actually harder in most cases as mini bosses than they are as bosses.
That's true. I think the only one that I didn't think was as bad, and I feel like it's more so because your upgrades are so low and your amount of hearts was so low, was the first boss, the dragon guy.
Yeah.
Which is named Aquamentus.
Interesting.
And he's like this fire shooting dragon.
He's the unicorn dragon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, I don't think he's that hard. I just think it's really difficult if you don't have full health
to the magic shield.
Do any damage. I didn't even know what the magic shield was at that point. So.
Right. I had no idea.
He just takes like a spread shot of 3 fireballs at you, and you can't block it with your normal shield. So.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the bosses real quick? Since we're talking about enemies anyway.
Yeah, let's talk about them.
The main thing to me on a majority of the bosses, other than, I think, mostly the dragons, a lot of them ended up being, like, one hit. It was, like, very anticlimactic to the dungeon. Is much harder than the boss.
Yes. Dodongo, I think you bomb him 3 times, and he was dead. And not even, like, a struggle to, like, get him to eat the bomb.
Depends on how... So you can have him swallow 3 bombs, or with Dodongo, if the bomb explodes close enough to his face, he gets confused by the smoke, and I just hit him with my sword. So I bombed him once, hit him with my sword twice, and he died.
Yeah, I think I hit him once with the smoke and just confused him and didn't know what was going on. It was just like, oh, I think I'm hurting him. Manhandle was the one that had 4 what looked like kind of piranha plants to me.
It was a little tough because every time you took one out, it moved faster.
So you can kill it with a bomb.
With a bomb, you can hit all 4 of them, yes,
and kill it. And
I didn't do that. But...
And I got it with one. I taken 2 of the heads out with my laser sword, and then at that point was getting hit a little bit, but just kept rapidly hitting A and in the direction of it, and it killed itself because it just comes at you.
Definitely.
Aquamentus was that first one. He really wasn't that bad. Digdogger was supposed to be some big sea urchin, but again,
I see that now.
Is he which one did we have to use the
flute?
That was the flute one?
Yeah, so he was a big sea urchin.
Yeah.
So you couldn't hit him.
And then when you
played the flute, he shrunk down to just this tiny little ball, and then you could hit it.
And he was not hard at all either.
No, because you also at that point most likely had the boomerang. So if you shrunk him and hit him with the boomerang, he stayed still, and then you could just.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that sounds even more pathetic.
What was the hardest part of that was that on the 4 corners had the statues that shot the fireballs at you.
That was the most difficult part. Yeah, sadly. There was Goma, which was the eye crab thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah, spider, crab, whatever it is. But I do have to discuss Goma because, so, again, first boss, I'm pretty sure Goma is what basically is the fungus inside the Great Deku Tree that kills the Great Deku Tree in Ocarina of Time. Goma's the first boss, if I remember correctly.
Don't remember who the first boss is. I don't
sure
remember many of those bosses, to be honest.
And you had to slingshot Goma in the eye to knock it off the ceiling so that you could then beat the shit out of it with your sword.
I like that you needed to animate beating the shit out of it.
So, I get very into Ocarina of Time. Goma in this game only can be hit with an arrow in the eye when his eye's open. Now, you get the bow in the first dungeon.
But you don't have arrows.
You get no arrows.
Nope.
And I get the bow, and I'm like, all right, I come across arrows in the merchants, buy something, will ya? But I'm like, I don't usually buy things in games, because I'm like, I'll find it, I'll kill something along the way, I'll find it, I want to save my rupees for something big. I don't know what's coming. Nothing drops arrows.
Nope.
You literally never get arrows unless you buy them, and once you buy them once, right? And then you just have as many arrows as you spend a rupee each time you shoot an arrow.
Correct. So I think we should talk about drops in a little bit, and we'll talk about the rubies a little bit as well. But yeah.
So I got through the whole dungeon, got 2 Goma. Impossible to kill Goma. Couldn't do it.
You can't. It even says in the manual, attack its weak point with a special weapon.
So I don't have the manual, so I don't know this. So I have to die, and then I have to leave the dungeon and go find arrows, and then do the whole dungeon again.
Yep.
That was the hardest part of Goma because it takes 1 fucking arrow to the eye and it's dead.
One.
And literally when you walk in the room, if you just shoot an arrow, it walks into it and dies.
I'm not going to lie. And so I didn't know it was that quick of a battle, but I think the anticlimactic comment before is the best that you can state with a lot of these. And that was one of them where I don't think I walked more than 3 squares, shot him in the eye, and was like, yeah, that's it. That was disappointing. After that, there's a Gliok, which is the dragon that has multiple heads.
Yes, that was a tough one.
And those got tough because once one was off, you couldn't damage it.
Yeah,
and it would keep shooting fireballs at you.
Also, if I believe, there was one dungeon, or there were a couple dungeons where there was the mini boss very close to the final boss. You had to basically beat 2 bosses at once.
Yeah.
And that was definitely tougher.
Yeah, so I think early in the game it just has 2 heads, but eventually ends up with 3 or 4. And when you've got 2 or 3 heads flying around, like it's a lot to attack, get in carefully, attack, and then get out without like getting hurt. And I think the only thing you could hurt it with was the sword.
Yeah, I got to the point in that one where I had my red potion.
Yep.
So I chugged my potion, walked into the room, threw as much of the power sword lasers as you could at it, and then once it hit me, I just went in there and I just jab, drink the rest of my red potion, jab, and just hope that I kill him before he kills me, and there was no real strategy to it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think that's one where as long as you had the health, that was honestly the best strategy, was just get in there, attack it as quickly and as much as possible, and then get out. That is like not that I'm counting the quote-unquote traps that like slide at you or the stone statues that shoot at you. That was pretty much about it for the bad guys.
Okay.
Do we want to talk about Ganon, the boss of the game, or do we want to save him for later?
Nah, we'll save him for later.
All right, we'll save him for later. So let's go back to the rubies and drops.
Yes.
So you are allowed to hold at most, and I don't believe there is an upgrade for this, 255 rubies.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. I remember that being a thing in some of the other games, though, I feel like.
I know in other games you get limits and then you get upgrades. Like Link to the Past has it. I know Ocarina of Time has it. I know that Breath of the Wild has it. Wind Waker has some type of that, piece.
So do you want to guess who has the answer?
I don't know. Wikipedia?
Reddit.
Reddit
Has the answer. Today I learned that the reason Link could only carry 255 rubies max in the original Legend of Zelda was because 255 is the largest number that can be stored and expressed in the 8-bit format.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Which makes sense now that I'm seeing it. I knew 256 was a key number.
I didn't know that.
But yeah. That's
all right. Well, I learned something new today. I will have to post the exact same thing on Reddit. Today, I learned that somebody else learned. I know that you thought there was a magic meter, and having played this and knowing that even in the second Link, The Adventures of Link, Zelda 2, or however you want to phrase that title.
Spoilers, man.
There is a magic meter in that one. I know. So there is. This is probably one of the few, if not the only, that doesn't really have a magic meter. Okay. And I don't think this is a bad way of using it because, unlike you, I spent my rubies when I had them, and I didn't mind when I did, the few times I did use the bow, just mashing that B button. So I think the only time at one point I had just bought like the meat trap item that you have to give to one of the bad guys to let you pass, one of the goblins.
Yes.
And I also knew that I could buy something else in that same spot that I wanted or needed. I forgot what else was in that merchant spot, but that was about the only time I didn't have enough rubies, other than real early in the game. You don't really buy a lot unless you use things a lot.
Right.
So I had those. I did just hear that even now to this day, and again, it's probably not like this day exactly, but in the last year or so, they've just realized that with drops in this game, if you did specific things, then you would get specific things back. So if you killed 8 guys in a row without getting hit, that 8th character was going to give you something specific. So if you killed him with a sword, you just got like a 5 ruby. If you killed him with a bomb, he dropped more bombs. If you killed him with this thing, he dropped arrows. So like didn't drop arrows, but like you could kind of manipulate what you got. Okay. If you killed, I think it was 16 enemies without getting hit, you got a fairy. So it kind of, even now, is getting those things. There was random dropping, but there was controlled dropping. So cool. People who are into the speedrunning of this game, one, good for you. but 2 are learning these little shortcuts of like, if I can get this far, I know I'll get this health back and blah, blah. So
now I found it very interesting, speaking of fairies. They did not work the same as fairies that I know and love.
Nope.
I don't know how much. I think it was 4. Was it 5? Was it a percentage of heart? They did not give you full health. And I was like, what kind of fucking fairy is this? They give you like
4 hearts. Yeah. It's not a lot, to be honest.
And I couldn't grab it in my jar, my empty potion bottle. Like, that was weird to have a potion that heals you more than a fairy.
Right, so there's the normal fairies that you could find from killing a bad guy. Did you ever find the, like, fairy, quote-unquote, like, I'll call it the fountain?
Was there just one?
I think there's
2, I think. Yes, I did come across one, at least, of the 2 once.
Yeah. I mean, again, like...
It's not really...
I didn't think... in the overworld, I didn't have many struggles.
Yeah.
It was more in the castles and in some of the...
but, again...
I remember as a kid, Death Mountain and those rocks... Those things used to just... I feel like those things had, like, homing devices on me as a kid, because I could not get through those areas.
Interesting. I got hit by 1 rock the entire game.
Now, I remember this playthrough, I don't think I got hit by 1, but I remember as a kid, I'm like, oh my god, and I like couldn't escape.
I could see that. Definitely useless fairy fountains, but again, just a cool mechanic to see, knowing what it becomes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that, like, you see the original idea, and then you, even when you get to, like, the Super Nintendo or the N64 or the GameCube or the Wii,
it's not like they made a whole new game. They just improved upon an already awesome game.
Yeah, they took the idea of exploration and action and took it to that next step visually and with new weapons, and then they made it more easier to explore and a bigger map, and then they took it to a different map with, like, Wind Waker, and they took it to an even more different map with Skyward Sword, and really just it blew this game up into the franchise that it is now, which is stunning.
Anything else drop wise? I think that was it for me drop wise, but I do want to talk more about items.
Yeah, let's get into items.
There were some interesting items, some classic items.
Yep. The flute,
the bombs, the bow and arrow.
Is the flute really an original item? I mean, like, classic?
Well, like, just a musical instrument, I guess.
Okay. All right, that I can agree with, because I don't know if a flute shows up in anything other than maybe Link's Awakening.
No, that's probably true.
There's, like, the ocarina, which Link in the Past has.
The ones that I'm thinking of that are more brand new to me. Yeah. One being, because I found my note finally, this was the one that was guarded by, like, 10 of those blue shield guys.
Oh, yeah.
The raft.
Yep.
Never seen that before. You only use it a couple times.
Like, twice, really.
2 or 3, once to get a heart, I think.
Yep.
And then
once to go to a castle.
And
I think those are the only 2 times you really use the raft. There's the ladder thing, which goes across 1 square. Which you use a lot more.
Yes, the ladder. The other item that I'm specifically thinking of, and then the magic wand we've discussed, which when you also get the Bible, becomes then a magic fire wand.
Yeah.
Those were some cool items that... The magic wand is in Link to the Past. Is there a magic wand? Am I remembering that correctly?
In Link to the Past, there's the fire rod and the ice rod. So there's 2 rods that are magic abilities.
But is the raft like a Wind Waker thing? I would imagine it seems like.
I mean, clearly then you obviously need it, but
paper Zelda.
I mean, the raft really, I think, was just to, like, create a water adventure. I mean, when we talk about, like, the future games, you then get the ability to swim instead of riding a raft in most future games, right?
Yes.
I don't think the raft was, like, the way to create a divider, I think, in just how you could or where you could explore earlier in the game. Not that it prevented much, but it prevented a little.
The candle... I mean, Boomerang's a classic item. The candle... I feel like there's something against. It's not a candle though, but is there something similar in Link to the Past where you have some like a torch or something?
You get a torch. Yep. You get
okay.
a lantern.
Yeah.
You get the power bracelet, which really you don't use much in this, but that lets you move certain rock things.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So that was a classic. I totally forgot about this, but this thing came in clutch when it came in. When you would kill enemies and they drop the magical clock, and you pretty much become invincible and they freeze in place.
True.
Can't tell you, there was a few areas where that came in, and I was like, if I didn't have this, I would be done.
And then the other one, the magical key, which I found to be kind of useless because I was racking up the keys.
So I think when I got it, that was one of the items I went back for. And so I went back and got it and still had, before I got it, 5 or 6 keys.
Yeah, definitely the same.
But
now, I don't think 5 or 6 keys would have gotten me through the last castle.
And that's the thing, that when I finished it, I knew that if I didn't have that, I was going to be doing a lot of work at Gan's Castle.
Yeah. But, it was interesting to find that when I still had a buttload of keys in my inventory.
All right, so you get the normal boomerang, the long boomerang, or the magic boomerang, I think it's called. You have the regular bow and arrow, and then you get the silver arrows. That's like the last upgrade you get. Mm-hmm. The whistle, which you had to use on one of the bosses, which I thought, to be perfectly honest, I thought was stupid. I wish you just had to have like a boss fight. It, outside in the overworld, teleports you. I don't know if there's an order. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason, because I felt like I used it and I was going random places.
I don't think there's an order, but it will only take you to dungeons you've already beaten.
Correct. Which, one of the things that I liked about this was when you hit it, because I accidentally hit it a few times in the overworld, you could avoid that whirlwind teleportation, which is something you can do in A Link to the Past when you use the ocarina to call the duck in to help you fly, or whatever that animal is.
Yeah.
Chocobo. Yeah. I thought it was funny that you could avoid this too.
Just because we will be talking Final Fantasy II very soon, so I had to get that reference in there. Speaking of, there was one other time you had to use it to drain the lake to get into one of the dungeons.
That's true, which I thought was a good idea. Yes. And I was like, all right, then now I felt like it was useful.
No, I assume, I didn't do this, but so there are some of those caves you go into where they offer to tell you a secret for 10, 20, 40 rupees.
Yeah, I found one that wanted 100.
I assume one of those must tell you to blow the whistle. Because, I just did it because, again, I was looking at a map of the overworld.
Yeah, but I don't know what all those things
So, I mean, you had to use your rupees in this game.
I have to honestly say that some of the statements that you were even given inside of the castles were so
dumb,
cryptic, that I'm not 100% sure what I was supposed to do with it.
Some of them, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what you mean by this, but okay.
One of them did make me realize, I don't know which dungeon was Snake? The Snake map.
Ooh, I don't know, to be honest.
That was the one where I realized that the dungeons actually had, the maps are shaped a certain way because the guy said there's a secret in the tip of the nose.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed that they all had shapes and knew that they had those titles, but didn't realize always what those things were. It is also something in the manual, and I did think it was cool.
It was a cool component to
throw in. It's a different idea to really try and dictate the area that way. And even Death Mountain was the skull.
Yeah. With secrets in the eyes of the skull.
Yep. And that's what one of the things I forgot about this, that there are even some parts of some of the early ones where you could bomb a wall or find a secret that was not part of the map.
On the map, and it didn't show up on your map when you paused the game.
No. One of the things I wanted to talk about, because we were talking about the hints that these people give you in the castle, and I didn't mean to do this. Someone gave me a hint, and I was going to hit pause and do something, and I kind of just grabbed my controller with one hand and hit the A button. I shoot the laser at the guy, and the guy starts firing back at me, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Did you just run away? Did you try and kill? I imagine This reminded me of the Kukos.
Yep.
You just hit them enough that they go nuts.
Well,
and
I
then
feel
they
like
attack you for a while.
every Zelda game has this. So in that one there's games that have that. There's Link's Awakening, where you can steal from like the store, and then you're the thief, and like there's all these little small things, and I'm like, what the? I didn't mean to.
I've done it without meaning to, for sure.
Because, and so again, I left the room and I had to go back through that
power-up sword, and I think there was one specifically, like, at the end, when you get to Zelda, and the fire is blocking her, and I was like, okay, only because I have accidentally hit merchants or the old man, I am going to be very careful about how I fucking get rid of the fire here, because I don't want to shoot Zelda in the face after I just saved her with my sword.
I know somebody who had beaten the game and got there and walked into the fire. Talk about having to do I don't know if they had to defeat Ganon again or what, but man, that must have been a pain. But that, I shot the old guy, had to like progress through the room to the left, had to come back, and then I was like terrified because I was like, is this guy going to just start shooting at me? And he doesn't, but I was like, what? I didn't mean to.
Right.
And then later in the game, when I was really exploring with the red candle and I was burning bushes, I was finding all these like areas. And I was like, yes, like this is why I wanted the red candle early. Like this is why what I wanted from this game was to like just light everything up.
Where's the red candle? Isn't it in a late dungeon? It's
one of the late dungeons. And that was my comment was, red candle would have made exploration easier / more enjoyable. Why such a late item to find?
Now, is that a dungeon that you can't really, like some dungeons you can kind of,
I don't
you can get
know.
into most of the dungeons.
I don't know.
You can't always progress very far in them depending.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was one that you could do early and not have that big of an issue.
Like the ladder, once you get the ladder, you can go pretty much anywhere.
Yes.
But the ladder you have to do first. But again, because I ran away from the ladder, I believe. No, it's the raft. Never mind. But
normally there's bombable areas and exploration areas where there's like the bandits, and he's like, it's a secret to everyone, and it's like 10 rubies, whatever it is. At least it's money. There are also these jackass old men who, when you burn the bush to go into their place and find them hiding down there,
they charge you a fee.
Take away your money for destroying the door.
Yeah.
Fuck that. That made me so angry. I was like, now I don't want to explore. I don't want to play this game because you're stealing my rubies. Not that I needed to buy anything.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the hell?
But I liked gambling with my rubies. That was fun.
There was gambling?
Yeah, some of the guys, you go into the old man and there's the 3 choices of rubies. And
I did find
10.
that, yeah.
If you pick 2 of them, will take away more rubies.
Yeah.
And 1 will give you rubies.
Yeah, I'm not that type of player.
I only did it twice.
Yeah.
I did it once and lost rupees. I did it a second time and I won more back than I lost. And I was like, all right, I've played enough blackjack in my life to know to leave when you're on top.
Yeah.
But it was fun for the 2 rounds that I played.
There was I think it was 8 pieces of the Triforce that you get at the end of the areas.
Is it 9? I think it's 9. It might be 8, but
there's
you get
9 dungeons.
Yeah, and you get one right before
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope, there's 8 pieces.
There's 8. Okay, then that really bothers me. I would have been okay with 9, but it is still called the Triforce.
But it's not the Triforce itself. It's very specifically the part that is just wisdom.
The Triforce has been broken up into pieces.
So it's just the wisdom part that's been broken into those 8 pieces.
It's fine, I guess.
Yeah. Because Link is still supposed to have his courage, and Ganon still has his power part of the Triforce, and Ganon somehow took Zelda's Triforce and broke it into those 8 pieces.
Well,
which I think is in the story.
Story, I believe that Zelda breaks it up knowing that Ganon is coming for her.
Okay.
So she breaks it up and hides it for Link to then find. If I remember reading the story plot correctly.
I won't argue with you. I don't know what the exact story is. It's broken into pieces in castles.
Yes.
right?
Or just down a flight of stairs.
Down a flight of stairs. Yeah, I mean, other than Ganon and Ganon's Castle, I think I'm good.
Yeah. That's the last note I have left is Ganon and returning to Zelda, as we've referenced a couple times. That people are probably like,
"No, that's true. True." I'm glad you brought that up because I would have forgotten. All right, so Ganon's Castle was
very different from the others. It was much more complicated, I think.
Significant. Yeah, it got to a point where, without a real setup of a map by yourself or a map that you've looked up, the amount of rooms that you had to bomb, the amount of teleportation within the map itself, from you went down this set of stairs and you're over here on this side and then back again. There was a lot.
Yeah, and I think you said too, we both accidentally found Ganon
before we wanted to.
Pretty easily, honestly. First try. I didn't have to backtrack ever.
Yeah.
I just happened to go the correct direction every single time, found Ganon immediately. I could not fucking find that man again without looking up a map and zooming into every box to be like, I gotta go this way, then that way, then bomb this. And I was like, how did I do this by accident?
So I tried to use the map only when I was really confused as to how I was somewhere or what I was supposed to really be going, because I feel like there was a few dead end kind of areas. But I knew that if I did die, at least the right outside of the castle, there was a place where you could buy a potion. So there was a spot really close nearby that I was like, all right, so I went in the first time, really just exploring, blowing things up, doing things. Got to a point where I used my potion, eventually died after I had found, I think, the red ring, and then was like, all right, I don't know where the hell I'm supposed to go next and what I'm supposed to do. So bought a new potion, full health, went back in.
Yep.
And actually, this is where I realized I was an idiot, because I bought the red potion and then got to the entrance. It was like, all right, I'm not walking in here with 3.
Yeah.
And so I used the red potion. Then I had only the blue potion. I was like, I should have just bought the blue potion, got full health, and then bought the red one.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But, that's where I was at.
Must have been a Friday.
I know. Couldn't do math. You explore this castle, and it's got some difficult spots. Yes. It's got some spots really you can just walk through the next door if you know where you're going or what to do.
But there are spots, like you said, where it's a staircase with a diamond of bricks around it that you can't move until you kill every enemy in the room. Annoying.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
It's a final boss dungeon, so
difficulty definitely ramped up.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about anything else in the castle? Because I do want to talk about Ganon a little bit.
I'm it's a very, again, coming back to Ocarina of Time and just the dungeon complexity, and aside from, I believe, everyone's favorite, of course, is the Water Temple. Amazing Ocarina of Time dungeon. Or worst dungeon of all time. Water levels are always the worst. But it's a precursor to just how complex and puzzle-oriented some of these dungeons eventually get in future Zelda games. So I appreciated that, and I really liked how big and even again, with every new dungeon there was some sort of different new mechanic that was just very well done.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those things of, you and I both came in with most of all of the possible upgrades. You could have come in with pretty much nothing. You could have come in with 3 hearts. You can do all of these things. Why anybody would or could, I don't fully know, because I'm not that skilled. But it's interesting to think that this game in 86 and jumping all the way to Breath of the Wild, where you can go and fight Ganon from the beginning, aren't that far apart in ideas and abilities and all of those things. It's crazy in my mind that you can have that almost a 30-year gap of gaming and still the similar result or possibility of result.
Yeah, I mean, you can go in with you can upgrade hearts, you can have your boomerang, your bombs. Like, there aren't massively different. Again, they just sort of expanded on it. Like, you can make more items, like build stuff, but it's not a significant amount of new stuff. No. It's just building on stuff that already existed. It's really cool.
It is. It's so cool that's something you could do. So Ganon.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Ganon? Because I have some.
Yes. I mean, I know what I did to beat him. I don't know if it's the only way to beat him. I'm interested to hear how you beat him, just to see if it's what I did, or
I didn't
if you
know
noticed the things I noticed, or what the deal was.
Didn't know what to do other than I needed the silver arrow.
Okay.
And so I went in.
I need the silver arrow.
I had most health, but went in, and I think he just disappears immediately and starts shooting fireballs at you. And invisible. I don't even know if you can block them, because I don't think I did or could.
I didn't.
And all I kept doing was just mashing A.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know what else to do. Yeah. So, I launched a couple arrows, nothing happened. I was like, what the hell?
He is invisible and also teleporting.
Yep.
Himself, and each time he teleports, I believe, I don't even know because you can't tell because he's invisible, if he fires the fireball at you when he first teleports, or like as he's leaving to go from one teleportation spot to another.
Don't know.
So it's not like you can like see the fireball pop up and be like, oh, swing right here, he's right here.
Yep.
I'm just swinging wildly, and I'm like, well, I'm kind of walking in a small circle. I tried like wandering the room.
I stayed in like
no, let me just stay in one spot.
Space, yeah. And other than to possibly avoid a fireball that I knew I could avoid, even if I knew I couldn't, there were some times where I just took the hit.
Yeah. So he is greenish, right?
Originally, yeah.
And so you swing wildly and eventually get lucky and hit him, and he's still green. I think the third time
he turns brown.
Yep. Is that when you're supposed to just shoot?
I don't know.
Silver arrows at him, or were you?
I think I kept hitting him shooting arrows at him. I don't even like. It happens so fast
and stays there longer, right?
Yes.
When you hit him when he's green, he just kind of like disappears again, and then you know that you've hit him. But when he turns brown, he stays visible for a short period of time.
No.
And I didn't do anything the first time he turned brown. I was like, oh, he turned brown. That's interesting. Did I kill him? And then he disappears again. I was like, fuck, I probably should have kept hitting him or something. So I made him turn brown twice, and then the second time shot him with one.
Yeah, one.
Two. I think I hit him with two.
I think I hit him with
one. And that was it. I didn't know it had to be a silver arrow, but I am happy that I did like my thing of I want to complete the whole dungeon and get all the items.
Yeah, because that's one you had to find in there. Yeah, but it was one of those things of like the difficulty jacked up because you didn't know anything, you couldn't see anything, you couldn't predict anything. Yeah. But I felt like it was I would almost rather have had like him teleport, shoot something at me, and me either have to avoid it or hit him, or like I wanted more out of that fight from what we got in the earlier fights.
Yeah, I'm also used to Ganon having a second form, so I was like, I beat the first form.
I mean, you beat him, but he turns into a pile of dust, and I found a great like picture online that I posted with my like the Instagram of this game, and it's just like a pile of what looks like poop blood. Like, I don't know what it was. Ash, I don't know. Yeah, I thought, I walked in and I was like, yes, let's go. And I just felt like I was attacking nothing.
Yeah.
And then not even knowing if I was hitting or supposed to shoot an arrow or what.
Yeah, I mean, totally fine. Like, it was a interesting new mechanic, fun experience. Yeah. I think just a second, like I said, a second phase
form
would have just done that much more.
Well, this is also when he's only
he's
only Ganon,
like
so he's not Ganondorf where he's got that massive power like withheld or something.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a whole transformation. It could be then now that he's visible to you but moving around the screen really fast or something.
Yeah, that's true. You defeat him. You walk in the next door. You poke a couple fires.
Run into the fire and don't. I still don't know what happened. You can shoot through. Your laser sword shoots through the fire.
Oh, yeah, I would not.
So don't.
You were good enough to have full health at that point, huh?
Didn't you when you picked up the Triforce?
I don't know.
You didn't get.
I don't. If I did have that, I didn't even recognize it, and I didn't know that I could have possibly killed Zelda.
I don't know if you can.
Oh, you wouldn't risk it.
I'm not gonna. I didn't want to. But just
you go in, you save her. You see some credits roll by.
Yeah,
and there was like 8 people, not even, that worked on this game. It was like one of the shortest credit screens I've seen in a while.
Definitely.
And you get a little note about Zelda.
Yes.
And the note that comes with this is that if you want to, which I think this is absolutely, again, mind-boggling, if you want to, you can play a second version of the game with different dungeons, or at least dungeon locations, and different map kind of setup if you use the name Zelda when you go to the character select screen.
Yes. So
I've never looked at that map. I've never played it, and I've never gone anywhere with it because legitimately I knew about it, but I've never known the name to play or put in, or the password to put in, and I didn't know. I've never done a thing with it.
Now, so sorry, you might have said this because I was trying to look. I did look at the credits, by the way. It's 9 people, but 2 of them are repeated. So I think it's literally 7 people that worked on this game.
Yeah.
So you beat the game. Can't you just pick your character that just beat the game and it does the...
Maybe. I don't know. I know that if you use the name Zelda, that will work.
So I believe the trick is actually, if you haven't beaten the game, you can just turn it on for the very first time and type in the name Zelda, and it will jump you straight to...
Quest 2,
second quest.
Yeah.
But if you beat the game, you just click on the the character you already beat the game with, and it will do the same. I think that's my understanding from what I've read. But at some point, we are going to have to revisit this game and play Second Quest. Quest.
I just think it's mind-boggling that, again, with everything else that they've already done, they fit legitimately 2 adventures in.
Mm-hmm. And that's this is again as I've said a few times, Souls games are one of my favorites, and that's a big mechanic on those is you beat the game and you get the new game, or the new game plus, or the new game plus. And so knowing again that aspect, and also just the open world aspect comes from this game right here, was very cool, very awesome. Big bonus to doing this podcast, just learning more about the history of video games.
Oh, yeah.
Super pumped.
At that point, are you?
Yeah.
Thoughts on a scale, on a rating? Do we want to make this one simple so that it's got something realistic, or do we want to go crazy and obnoxious? And if so, what are we doing? 255?
I like 255.
255, okay.
I didn't have much. I mean, we've done 8 a lot, I feel like, and there's the 8 pieces of the Triforce, but I feel like we've done 8 for a couple different games.
Yeah.
9 for the different dungeons is not that much different from 8.
No. 16 bombs is how many you can hold.
I like 255.
Okay. 255. You got something in mind?
I think so.
I think my rating's going to surprise you, even though I've loved discussing this game.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying not to, I mean, fuck it. It's just a funny rating system that we're doing on a podcast, but I don't want to,
No, it's serious. This is the most serious thing we do. Every time.
I don't want to,
We're being judged for how we judge a 35-plus-year-old game.
I know, people are gonna get in the comments section and tell us we're the worst human beings ever.
Well, we are not. All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. All right, I'm ready. I'm gonna give it a 143.
Wow.
As much fun as I had more fun just connecting this game to the future games.
That's true.
I didn't love how difficult it was to find things. I didn't love how much I felt I relied on a walkthrough, and how difficult it was to figure things out, even little things in this game. I see where the game wanted to go, and obviously we've seen that change in all the new games. But I just, if you were to sit there and say, hey, do you want to play this again? No, I don't. Do I want to play Quest 2? With a walkthrough, sure, I'll play it. But in reality is, I don't have the time to make my own map or the ability to explore these places well. Because you run through bombs in 5 seconds. You have the blue stupid candle, which burns one bush at a time. So I don't want to use the blue candle to go look for hearts or, places to buy things. I want the red candle now. And then I'll go look for those things. I just don't have... Other than somebody who wants to go and play and recognize the history of The Legend of Zelda,
right?
I would never tell them to go play this game. I would say, hey, go and play. And again, I would probably go with, honestly, I think I would go with a Wind Waker because I think it's friendly enough gameplay wise. A Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, of the games that I've played, at least. I've heard of other ones that are good starting points in the play of the game, but man, I would not recommend people go and play this unless they are looking for the nostalgia, unless they are looking for the history and the beginnings and that origin.
Or unless there are plenty of people who enjoy playing games with a walkthrough.
Yes. If you don't mind a walkthrough, this is a great game with a walkthrough.
So
my score goes drastically up. With walkthrough, this game is 200 plus.
Yeah.
Without walkthrough, and again, I wanted to play this not forcibly having to use walkthrough. Most of the Zelda games I've played, including Breath of the Wild, not that I've 100% Breath of the Wild, but I think this is the only time I've truly used a walkthrough in a Zelda game.
Okay. Yes, I definitely... That was my whole struggle, was because we just sat here and talked about how amazing the game was.
The game still is, but the reality is kind of that replayability. I could sit and listen to that music all day.
Yes.
But I
needed to be reminded of some of the flaws, because there are few of them, but they are devastating to the game.
Yeah. It's just where gaming is now. I can think of some NES games where these are not the struggles. I could pick it up and I could play it, and it's a good game. It's clean. The controls are great. Music's great, and boom, done.
So, I definitely didn't use a walkthrough. What I used, the only thing I needed was just a map of the overworld.
Yeah.
Which I want a map. I guess I didn't want it numbered. I don't see what the difference that would make, really. The map was the only, you needed the map, again, because, like I said, and like you said, the stuff that's hidden is, it's completely hidden. There's no hint, unless it's, again, maybe I need to look at what the hints from all the old people, if you
But even them, I only found one of them.
I guess.
And I know you found a few of them, or more than I did at least. But I feel like some of them could have been hard to make your, increase your health, and be well, that's duh.
But that's really, I think that's the only flaw to me, is just the fact that some stuff is hidden again, it's a big factor. It's very difficult. You can't advance in the game without it, but just having an overworld map, everything else about the game was very enjoyable, and I am going to give a bit of a rating based on the nostalgia. I'll say 180 out of 255. Will be my rupee score. I also agree with your recommendation wise. If you want to play this game for nostalgia, to get the history of Zelda, or if you don't mind pulling something open, if you want to be able to kind of walk into a game and just like, I want to explore and figure it out, this one's got too much. It's just too much effort to put. Like, you're gonna have to go buy a bajillion bombs, which you can only hold 8 of at a time. So that definitely holds it back.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is updated and fixed in future games. But for this one here, that's where I will put my rating at.
Fair enough. Dude, again, I mean, even though I feel like I just beat on it a lot right there, that game is an adventure itself, and it's something I'm glad we went back and played. It definitely does give me some of that nostalgia. I love listening to the music in all of the areas, and I'm glad that this is one that I can put on like my checkbox of I've like beaten it.
Yes.
I do think I will, and we will at some point go through Quest 2, and I'm gonna do. I want to find a way where I'm not using a walkthrough, and with that, I feel like I can go back and almost either re-rate this or give myself a better idea of where I am. But I felt like I was just so reliant on that. But we shall see where that happens. Yeah, and what other Zelda games we go and explore.
Yes, I definitely feel like you being able to check that one off the box. I feel a little less. I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but I know now that I shouldn't be calling myself as big a Zelda fan as I do, because I need to get more of it down.
Yeah.
But I still will always say that Ocarina of Time is my all-time favorite game. So
great game.
I will go that far, and I won't try and overhype myself any more than that.
All right. We'll get to some of those 64 versions as well at some point in this podcast. Anything else you want to add before we do our last little bit?
I'll just say, again, I think I mentioned this, Final Fantasy II is coming next.
Yeah.
And we already know that one, we are planning to be a two-parter.
At least a two-parter. We'll see where we go. Yep.
And by Final Fantasy II, I mean it's a weird system there.
Yeah.
Like it's two different games sometimes.
I'm going to call it Final Fantasy II, and you call me whatever you want to call me, internet, but...
It's the one with Cecil, the Dark Knight, and it's the Final Fantasy II, the Super Nintendo version, I believe is how you...
I'm from North America, and that's all I know. So that's the number they gave me, and that's what I'm calling it. All right. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, follow us on Instagram at DidYouPlayThat. Watch our walkthroughs, our playthroughs. I can't call it a walkthrough because I'm not that skilled. And share it with a friend. We'd greatly appreciate it. And until next time, adios, people.